we were Trojan. So we went from 3 to 1,300 employees that were involved with Trojan. And then I was there when they started building the tower 3 or 5 feet at a time, because that's how it went up, 5 feet at a time. And then I was there through the decommissioning until we put all the fuel out there on those 34 cylinders out there on that pad. And so 17 years of fuel is in 34 cylinders.
Wow.
So
And
that was in 2003. So that's when I retired.
they're still there today?
Oh yeah, they'll be there forever because the
Okay.
federal government, our illustrious Congress in 1968 promised there'll be a place to put all of that. And
They're still looking.
oh yeah, they're still looking. And so Harry Reid had $5 billion of construction done in Nevada where he was a senator. And then at the very last minute, they shut it down. So the Navy and all the other 100 and some nuclear plants are in the same boat. There's no place to put it. But meantime, they still use it. And it'll come back because the green people are finally realizing, you know what? There's no carbon issues associated with it. So it'll be interesting down the road what the green people come up with.
Yeah, I remember hearing in hydro for years, Stan, that the engineers talking about nuclear will come back. So,
well, they're working on it right now. The new types are much smaller. You got to understand, we were 1,100 megawatts. People don't have any concept of what 1,100 megawatts is base load. For hydro, which is like which is rated at 500, is really only a 300 megawatt facility, because if they let all the water out to make 500 megawatts, the reservoir would go dry, and then there would be zero power. But when you have 1,100 base load megawatts, that's unbelievable, and they just threw it away. It was so ridiculous what happened back in '93, but that was all politics.
Do you remember the protests out there when they were trying to,
Yeah.
Lloyd Marbet?
I spent 20-hour days because we used to have to go drive up to Rainier, get on a tugboat, ride down to the intake structure and climb a rope ladder to get into the facility so we could work a 12-hour shift, because we were 12 on, 12 off, but the rest of the time was spent on the tugboat and climbing the rope ladder.
Oh my gosh, Stan.
Because the protesters had blocked the entrance way there at the main gate.
oh my God.
So we did that for, I don't know, about a week or two. And then finally the state police came and shooed them all away from stopping the employees from getting to work. But that was back in the early 70s. Yeah, it was it was something else. Yeah, we had a long. Yeah, do you remember? We back in the 60s, we had more generals than we had anyone else. The engineers, corporate engineer, or whatever. Will Walsh and General Itchner. Do you remember those people? Any of you?
No.
Carol's nodding her head. Well, anyhow, when we were having hearings, we went through 70 some state, local, and federal hearings to get our permits to build Trojan. And so we were doing permits from mostly in 70, 72 was when most of them were going on.
You did the PSA.
So that was back in what? Robert Short and Warren, those were the presidents back in the 60s and 70s.
Bob Short.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
Bob Short was very good, and Warren, and of course Williams. We had he was a vice president. So
Well, at one time they reorganized, I remember, and Generation had a president, Lindblad, and K-Step was the president of the distribution side. We had multiple presidents.
Right.
Well, the other, I found it fascinating that you realize that we almost had another nuclear plant.
Yeah.
Anybody remember where it was going to be?
Boardman.
Boardman was
Mhm.
originally permitted and cited as a nuclear
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah.
the vessel, the core, the vessel, the reactor vessel was at Trojan. And they used to cut, every day they would come in and cut it up for scrap. It was it's 8 inches thick of carbon steel and lined with an inch of stainless steel.
Wow.
And it was just sitting on railroad pilings, and they would come in and just cut it into scrap. And of course, every night, some of that piling would catch on fire. So the Rainier Fire Department would have to come and put it out. The only time you could see it smoking or burning was at night when you saw the flames. So yeah, we had all the steam generators and the reactor vessel for Boardman. Trojan was
Sorry, I thought they took the reactor vessel. I remember them making a special trailer that had wheels all up and down.
Our reactor vessel was, yes, hauled off to up to Washington to be buried.
Up to Hanford.
Right. So all the steam generators, the pressurizer, and the reactor all were removed from Trojan, put on a barge and barged down to Richmond and then buried. So they just dug a deep trench, something similar, quite a bit deeper than when that whale was buried there on the Oregon coast. After they tried to blow it up, if you remember, remember that back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
What a mess. Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, so that was something to watch them build everything. I remember flying over the site on a PG helicopter when they were still just excavating Trojan, and they had lopped off the top of the hill where the cooling tower sat, and they had blasted the key where the reactor sat and for where all the refueling took place. All it was it's all solid concrete. It's all global balsa. It's just rock out here. The global rock series, Trojan sits right on that. And when they excavated where the cooling tower, where the switch yard is, where the 230 kV lines come in, you got to understand that area used to be where the Columbia River ran. And the next time, if you ever drive up Highway 30, as you go through Goble, you know, where the hell's Goble? It's that little tavern right there in Goble before you get to Rainier. If you look at that cliff right there on your left, the Columbia River used to go there. That was where it ran. So it ran right through where our switch yard was. So when they sunk pilings down, they sunk pilings down till they finally hit bedrock. And that's where the switch yard is that you see as you drive past the present site. Well, over time, everything kept settling. And so they had to put extensions on all those risers where the 230 kV lines come in. You got two from up north, and then the Bonneville lines, and then you have St. Mary's and Rivergate come up through there. So so when Trojan operated, we tied into all that 230 kV line, so we had power going both north or south, depending upon where the load was. And that's how we ran for 17 years.
Where did the name Trojan come from?
Well, Trojan, the name of Trojan came from, that was a powder company.
Blasting.
Just blasting powder. So Trojan is where the cooling tower sits or sat, is where the Trojan powder company was.
Oh,
And
my
so,
gosh.
so when they put the tunnel in as you go up Cornelius Pass and you go through where that railroad tunnel is and stuff like that, my grandfather and Tony Boccini were two of the old Italians that blasted that tunnel. And that's where all that powder came from Trojan.
Wow.
So-
that's,
So
that
how
is,
many
I
years
didn't know
do you-
that.
Stan,
What?
how many years with all your family, how many years do you have at
100.
PGE?
100 years between my dad. He worked for 38 years, and I got 31, and my brother's still working there. He's got 34 now. So we got over 100 years. We go back to the 1942. So the Chiottis have been in the payroll for some time now, good Italian payroll. Yeah, well, matter of fact, the reason that I was able to be hired is back then nepotism was alive and well. So my dad was a truck driver out of Hillsboro. So Joe Williams could get a special compensation thing for me to be hired. So when they hired me in 68, I was hired for Trojan. I couldn't go to any other department. So that's the only reason because I was a Navy nuke, and I was essentially the first hire because they were in contract negotiations at the time. They didn't sign the contract for Trojan until July of 68. So I read meters out of Gresham from February 68 till I moved down to Portland in August of 68.
Oh, wow.
So that's my start of Trojan. Or PGE was a meter reader out of Gresham.
So Stan, when you recorded the readings, that what you wrote them down manually with a pencil in a book, right?
Well, yeah, we had a little metal can. That's all we had. That had all the cards were just the old style cards, and so you just wrote the numbers down, and you always read a meter from right to left.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it makes a difference because if you screwed up, especially on some of those companies, the big power companies or the aluminum plants, the multiplier on those things was like 1,000,000 to 1. Your house meter is 1 to 1, but if you messed up, they would get like $1 million bill from PGE. So you had to make sure you read the things
I
right.
think you were in Texas.
But yeah, that was an experience. So I was mostly out of Gresham. So I had the Larch Mountain, Rhododendron, and all those places, and Cazadero Dam up the Clackamas River.
Yeah.
Those were all my areas of reading meters. So I had some fun things because the Columbus Day storm totally revamped the rhododendron and all those summer homes.
Mhm.
So it was quite the thing to try to read meters up there where the house would be right across the river, but you couldn't get there because when they had that storm and all the flooding that took, it was unbelievable that the damage that the Columbus Day storm caused up there. So